This video is made possible by Practical Defense Systems, the best online security training at the lowest prices. You can start your security career today online at pdsclasses.com. Check them out.
Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. It's time for the GunGuyTV Podcast.
Hi, this is Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for all of your support of GunGuyTV and the GunGuyTV Firearms Podcast. That's what this is, and I'm grateful for the fact that you listen to it and the fact that you support me the way you do. I urge you to continue doing that. I'm going to talk about a few things today in this podcast. As usual, this podcast is 1 hour long, essentially. The first half an hour is available on your favorite podcast player, and it's publicly available for free. You'll also find video copies of it, sort of, on YouTube and the other video players, Rumble, BitChute, the Utah Gun Exchange, Gun Streamer, and so on, and Vimeo, too, for that matter. So you can also consume it there. But the second half is going to be available on Patreon only for my GunGuyTV crew. So if you would like to join the GunGuyTV crew, please do that. There is a link in the description. You can easily go, if you'd like, to GunGuyTVcrew.com, or you can go to GunGuyTVcrew.tv or .anything else for that matter, and it will take you right to the Patreon sign-up page for the GunGuyTV crew, where you'll find exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. Okay, let's get going with the podcast here, because what I want to address is the fact that I believe we are in the middle of a civil war without one single shot being fired and no guns being used. And I'm going to explain exactly what I mean here step by step, because what we're seeing, I think, is a war for our country, a war for our culture, certainly a war for our Constitution, the war for the Bill of Rights, the war for the Second Amendment, and all of it is being fought right now, right before our eyes. And some of us are involved in it. Some of us are not, but no deaths are being recorded because it's not that kind of war, and no shots are being fired because, again, it's not that kind of war. Let me give you an idea. A very famous quote from Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War, is that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. And we've been told, depending on which commentators you want to listen to, that the left has been doing that to us for a long time, and that the whole Saul Alinsky theory was to win without fighting and do so incrementally. And so incrementally, we've lost parts of our country as founded. We've lost certain of our rights as founded. But I submit to you that we're fighting back. So let me give you some examples here, and hopefully those will encourage you. That is my goal with the podcast right now, is to be encouraging, to help you walk away from listening to this podcast with a lift in your shoe, feeling better about the country, feeling better about the battle, feeling better about life, and hopefully engaging in the battle a bit more than you do right now, perhaps engaging at all in case you're not engaged. I suspect that you are engaged because you're listening to this podcast, and you wouldn't be if you weren't engaged. But let me go through the battle here. First of all, the battle is being fought on a whole lot of different levels in different ways in different places. One example is between the federal government and the states. The states in many ways are taking back their authority from the federal government, and they're battling it out. For example, we're seeing more and more Second Amendment sanctuaries throughout the country. In fact, I got a bunch of stories here in my hot little paw. This one is on AmmoLand. It says nearly half of all U.S. counties are now Second Amendment sanctuaries. That story was published on May 6th, and I'll put a link to it in the description if I remember to do it. But a county-by-county count, I mean, that kind of sounds funny, but a county-by-county basis, there are nearly half of the counties in the country are now Second Amendment counties. Now, in addition to that, many states have become Second Amendment states, and it seems like every time I look at the news, there's another one. Here's just some headlines for you. This is from the St. George News. Legislators try to make Utah a Second Amendment sanctuary. This is another story. Bill making Tennessee a Second Amendment sanctuary. State passes their state house. This one from, I'm trying to see where this is, I don't know what publication this one is from, but it says Governor Abbott again touts Second Amendment sanctuary state legislation as Biden unveils action against guns. And let's see, Oklahoma now Second Amendment sanctuary state. Arizona, where we have property, my wife and I, is a Second Amendment sanctuary state. That happened very recently, and those just seem to be moving rapidly across the country. There's this incredible movement. It's not just happening serendipitously. I mean, there's a movement to turn states, particularly the red states, into Second Amendment sanctuaries. And you might ask, what does that mean? Well, what that means is that state is not going to help the federal government enforce constitutionally invalid attacks on your Second Amendment rights. Now, there's also the constitutional carry movement, and that is sweeping across the country. But before I even mention that, let me let you know that Needles, California, believe it or not, in the crazy whack job leftist state, the blue state of California, where my wife and I live, Needles, California declared itself a Second Amendment sanctuary a long time ago. And in San Clemente, California, just a little north of San Diego, the city council didn't declare themselves a Second Amendment sanctuary. Instead, they called it a Second Amendment Freedom City. I'm not sure what the difference is, but that happened just very recently. And you can tell just how much this is rattling the left when you look at stories like on the Brady campaign website that is entitled so-called, I love the so-called, quote, Second Amendment sanctuaries, unquote, are troubling attacks on gun safety laws across the country. And this thing just goes on and pitches a 2-year-old fit through the entire article over the idea that states and counties and localities across the country, literally half the nation, have declared themselves and has declared itself a Second Amendment sanctuary. Well, this is a battle going on between the states and certain municipalities and the federal government's desire, and in some cases, like in California, the state government's desire to destroy your Second Amendment right.
You're listening to the GunGuyTV Podcast.
Look at the constitutional carry movement. I mean, that's screaming across the country. I remember when Ronald Reagan was president, I think there was exactly one may issue state. That was it. One. The rest of them, many of them didn't issue at all as far as permits were concerned. And many of them, like California, issued only on a very restrictive shall issue basis. But since then, may issue went away and shall issue streaked across the country, started in Florida, and that really became the norm. And the outliers were places like California and New York that had the may issue policy. And now constitutional carry is ripping across the country. I'm reading an article here that appeared in, hang on a second, let me look. This one is in Legal Defense for Self-Defense, I guess. This is a U.S. Law Shield website. And it lists the following states as constitutional carry states as of the time of the printing of this particular article, which was March 31st, 2021. So it may have changed a little bit since then. Here they are. Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho, Iowa, which will be effective July 1st, 2021, Kansas, Kentucky, Maine, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, again effective July 1, 2021, Utah, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wyoming. In addition, while they're not considered constitutional carry in every respect, 6 states, Delaware, Louisiana, Nevada, New Mexico, North Carolina, and Virginia, all allow permitless carry of handguns openly for open carry. And then Texas, it looks like, I know Governor Abbott has said he will sign it. My understanding is both houses of the state legislature have passed a constitutional carry law, and now it is going to the governor's desk for signature. That adds another one. A lot of these states were not constitutional carry before, but it has just really taken off, particularly in light of Joe Biden's desire to further and further restrict your Second Amendment rights. So even the constitutional carry movement shows that we are winning, and it is, again, many people and YouTubers and so on have talked about the fact that there may be a civil war. Well, I must tell you that it's not brewing, it's happening. It's just not civil war in the way that we think of it. And frankly, I'm grateful for that. I don't want to see a shooting war in our country. I mean, I don't know anybody who does, and if they do, I think they might be a little cracked. That's nuts. You don't know what you're wishing for. That said, having a civil war in this fashion, I think, is more effective, and I think we're going to win it. I'm encouraged by that. A dozen states, I mean, this is not firearms related, but it's part of the whole deal. It's part of the whole cultural deal. A dozen states are actually, maybe more than a dozen right now, are working on banning critical race theory. So here's Biden sitting in the White House wanting to push this hateful ideology into all of our schools, and state after state after state is now banning it at the state level within the state school system. So the feds may want to push that on your state, but if your state won't allow it, it isn't going to get pushed there. And that's the battle between the states and the federal government. 47 states currently are working on election integrity bills. Now that's huge because we know there's a lot of questions about the presidential election that just occurred, and probably rightfully so. So we have the audits in Maricopa County, Arizona going on. We've got audits apparently going on in Georgia, and those are sparking more audits perhaps in other states. And then you got guys like Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, who started his own website, his own social media thing, and he's holding rallies and spending a lot of money and running around all over the place and putting together very informative and I think, frankly, very accurate videos and documentaries about the things that he's uncovered, and those are just taking the country by storm. You have border states. I mean, we're just looking at the battle between the states and the feds right now. You got border states declaring states of emergency on the southern border. Again, not gun related, but still, it's an indicator of the kind of battle that's going on right now. Arizona, Governor Ducey declared a state of emergency a while ago and sent the Arizona National Guard to the border. Now, there's some dispute by some of the Democrat, more lefty sheriffs, in I think one or two of them, that don't really want the National Guard there, but the other sheriffs are certainly happy about it. Then you've got Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb, who started an entire website and a group called Protect America Now. You'll find it at protectamericanow.com. And it's a collection of sheriffs, not just on the southern border, but from around the country, who are eager to defend your rights and defend the border and fight for the country. And these are your county sheriffs. And the nice thing about county sheriffs is they're elected officials. They're not beholden to the federal government for much of anything, and these folks are eager to defend the United States. So you might want to check that out. Check it out at protectamericanow.com. Now, if you're a sheriff, I urge you to join. Texas, Governor Abbott just declared a state of emergency in Texas and has declared that Texas authorities will arrest illegal immigrants when they commit crimes for, among other things, aggravated trespass, because they are trespassing upon ranches and private property, and they're breaking things and stealing things and assaulting people, for property damage, for child endangerment. Certainly, when you take a child and you throw them into the Rio Grande so that the child's life is at risk, and that forces Border Patrol and other authorities to go save the child so that you can run away and get away, that is considered child endangerment. When you drop a child off of a 40-foot fence or border wall down to somebody else, you've endangered that child. There's also drug trafficking, weapons violations, weapons trafficking, all these things that can and should be prosecuted through state and local laws are going to be prosecuted in the state of Texas. I hope that the other border states will follow suit. We'll have to see what happens. But even in Texas, they're working toward an effort to perhaps finish building the border wall that President Trump started. And since Biden has come to office, he's stopped building it. Well, the Texans are about to start building it back. Again, this is all the stuff that's happening in this rather bizarre war between the states and the federal government. But like they say in the weird commercials in the middle of the night, but wait, there's more. And I'm going to tell you about it in just a second. I mentioned the GunGuyTV crew a few moments ago, and I want to mention it to you again. That is where you can support GunGuyTV if you'd like to do that, and this podcast, by joining the GunGuyTV crew on Patreon. That's where you're going to find live streams, exclusive videos, exclusive posts. I try to make a post every day, Monday through Friday. Some days I miss, as I did yesterday, because I was up in Orange County visiting with the California Rifle and Pistol Association, but I try to post something every day. I post a lot of videos and some other things. Some of them are educational videos, training videos. Some of them behind-the-scene videos and that kind of stuff. We also have guests coming up for live streams where you can ask the guests the questions you want to ask, and a whole lot of other things going to happen on GunGuy TV Crew. I urge you to join me over there and help support GunGuy TV by becoming part of our crew. You can find it at GunGuyTVCrew.com.
You're listening to the GunGuy TV Podcast. Please pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Now, all I've touched on at this point is the war between the states and the federal government as the states fight back against this leftist, socialist, Marxist assault upon our country, not just our Second Amendment, but every amendment in the Bill of Rights, our entire Constitution, and as our country is founded. And yet these states are picking up this fight. But there are other places where this is being fought. Frankly, it's being fought between gun owners and their government. I'm going to submit to you right now that gun control is dead. Now, they tried to destroy Cody Wilson. He made some stupid mistakes, that's for sure, but they tried to destroy him. But that did not destroy Defense Distributed. They are still producing, selling the Ghost Gunner 3. They're now on the third version of their CNC machine that makes your gun for you. Now, if you don't want to do that, you don't have the money to do that, there's still the 80% lowers for both rifles and handguns. And yes, Biden has asked the ATF to do something about that, to change those rules. But you'd have to be a civics failure in school to think that ATF can make law. They can't. If Biden wants ATF to go back and change the definition of a firearm, what causes a firearm to be a firearm, what makes a receiver, he has to go back to Congress and do it. Now, ATF will try to do it because they're told by the commander-in-chief to do it, but it's going to fail in court, and we all know that. In the meantime, because he's asked them to do that, these things are flying off the shelves so fast that the manufacturers can't make them quick enough. If you haven't already tried, go see if you can find 80% lowers for a Glock or a 1911 or an AR. See if you can find even stripped uppers are hard to get. See if you can find a jig. I mean, you're going to find that most of these things in most places are sold out. You'll find some that are available, and that's because those companies are making them at warp speed. If you think about it, here's the thing to think about. How many millions of those has Joe Biden effectively sold? He's been the best salesman for 80% lowers and for CNC machines like the Ghost Gunner 3 that has ever walked the earth. Which means even if ATF changes the rules, there are people who are going to make their own guns and they're not telling anybody. And there are going to be millions and millions and millions of law-abiding citizens making their own ARs, making their own handguns, and so on. And the federal government, the state government, is not going to know where those are. Gun control is effectively dead. Look at this. I found an article. What was this published in? I printed it out, now I don't know. But this article was entitled, More Than 23 Million Firearms Sold in 2020, over 21 million gun background checks were conducted, and almost 10 million new gun owners. So that's 23 million firearms, almost 10 million new gun owners, and that was in 2020. That doesn't count from January to June of 2021. How many guns have been sold in that time? If it was 23 million during COVID, you know they've added another 10 or 12 million since then. All those guns are out there. There's 10 million or so more new gun owners. And if you watch the news, you find that nationally, Biden's push to control guns and create more gun control is becoming ever less popular. In fact, to put it the other way, it's becoming ever more unpopular. Even in blue states like California, the politicians are beginning to feel the heat. Just very recently, the anti-gunners in the California legislature tried to pass a tax on gun sales, and it failed. Now, they're going to bring it back and try again, but one of the reasons it failed, even though they have a supermajority, is because some of those legislators are in districts where they're concerned that if they pass a tax, they might not get reelected. You know, Sam Paredes is right when he talks about these folks' number one concern is being reelected and staying in office. They don't care about anything else. They care about staying in office. That's their thing. That's all they care about. So when it looks like they might not be elected, they choke, and they don't vote in lockstep with the rest of the anti-gun crazies, even in the legislature of California. Look at the sheriff of Los Angeles, who recently announced that because the murder rate and violent crime rate in Los Angeles had gone up so drastically, 95%, that he was going to issue more concealed carry permits to Los Angelinos. Now, he's also said that he's going to have them prove that they need it through this good cause process rather than doing shall issue. And I will tell you that's not good enough, and you'll agree that's not good enough. But what I would point out to you is that is an enormous pendulum swing in the right direction. The chance of getting a permit at all in Los Angeles has been nil for a very, very long time, as long as I can remember. I had an employee who lived up in that area, lived in Torrance, and I tried to get him a permit at one point for business purposes. And while he could get a permit easily in Orange County, San Diego County, Riverside County, or any of those counties for business purposes, he had no chance in L.A. because they wouldn't even issue it if you could provide good cause. Now, at least the needle has moved a little bit to where if you have a business case, you're probably going to get a permit. And why is this the case? Is this because Sheriff Villanueva is such a great guy? No, it's because he wants to stay sheriff and he's worried about not being elected if he doesn't do this, because people in Los Angeles are tired of dealing with the violent crime and the fact that police can't do anything about it. So the pressure is on, even in blue states like California. Believe me, they're feeling the heat. There's another magical place this battle is being fought, and I'm going to share that in just a moment. If you'd like to support GunGuy TV and do it without costing yourself 1 red cent, the easiest way to do it is to shop Amazon using our Amazon link. Actually, we have so many affiliate links now, you can buy everything. You can buy things from Amazon, whether it's toilet paper or toothpaste or anything else you buy at Amazon. For that matter, you can buy targets from Caldwell Shooting. You can buy various different accessories from Smith & Wesson Accessories. You can buy lights and lasers and laser grips from Crimson Trace. You can buy reloading stuff from Frankfurt Armory. All those companies share their profits with us when you buy through them, and it costs you absolutely nothing. Some of them will even give you a 10% discount. The easiest way to find that is to go to GunGuy.tv and look at the little selection at the top that says discounts on gear. When you click on that, it'll take you to the list of companies that support GunGuy TV, and you can shop them all if you want, or any one particular one. And no matter what you buy through any of those links, it will cost you not 1 red cent, but when you buy, those companies will pay GunGuy TV a little marketing fee. It helps us keep the lights on, so please do shop there.
Shooting straight and always right on target. This is the GunGuy TV Podcast.
I wasn't kidding when I said there are many other places where this battle is being fought. Most notably, one of them is within the federal court system. President Trump did a masterful job of getting more and more conservative, constitutional, constructionist, I guess you would call them, judges on the federal court system, everywhere from the lowest of federal courts to the Supreme Court and everything in between. No sooner had I finished recording the podcast than Judge Benitez in San Diego, California, issued his decision in the assault weapons ban on California and struck it down constitutionally. So I do want to include in our victories that we're having yet another victorious case for the Second Amendment. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned it here. Sam Paredes will be on with me on Sunday, and I'm already talking with Chuck Michelle to get him on the show to go through the case with me as well. So we'll have some future videos in just the next day or two on the brand new case that struck down the California assault weapons ban. Now, don't go change your rifle right away, because that's going to go, obviously, to the Ninth Circuit, more than likely, and the Ninth Circuit may make a change. We don't know. And so if you change your rifle now, you're going to have to change it back later. Additionally, it appears that Judge Benitez put a 30-day stay on the decision, so the assault weapons ban is still in effect right now, as far as I know. So don't race out and change your rifle. For example, the lower courts are deciding in favor of gun owners quite a bit. We have, I guess, the gentleman we call Saint Benitez, Judge Benitez here in San Diego County, has helped us a number of times, and there are other judges even in this crazy state of California. And you're going to see more and more of those types of victories. Even the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals out here in the West is not nearly the nutty ninth it ever was before. Now, it hasn't swung completely into our favor, but right now it's about a 50-50 court. So we're winning a lot. You'll see more and more 3-judge panels vote on the side of the Constitution and decide on the part of gun owners. Now, they do go to the en banc panel, and sometimes that gets thrown out. But when that happens, where does it go? Well, hopefully to the Supreme Court. And while we have been frustrated that the Supreme Court has turned away a lot of 2A cases, most recently they decided to take a case out of New York that will settle what it means to bear arms in the Second Amendment. Now, in Heller, they settled what it meant to keep, that the right to keep arms is an individual right that is part of each and every American's rights. It's not a corporate right, it's not a militia right, it's an individual right. But they touched on bear a little bit, but they really didn't decide it. And this time they will. I think the other thing, hopefully they will decide, is how these cases are to be approached in the lower courts. My hope is they'll get rid of these crazy balancing tests and scrutiny levels and instruct the courts to look at the text, history, and tradition of the law. And if that happens, you're going to see a pretty sizable flurry of lawsuits to overturn the vast majority of the crazy gun control we experience, particularly in states like California. You'll also notice that in many places, taxpayers are voting with their feet. In other words, they're packing up, they're taking their money, and out the door they're going. They're just going someplace else. There's an article that appeared in the Epoch Times. I thought was interesting. The headline reads, taxpayers fleeing California take $8.8 billion in gross income to other states. That's right, that was billion with a B. That has dinged the state tax revenue significantly. In California, now is seeing more people leaving the state than are coming in. So our population in California has been shrinking for a number of years now. And as people leave, they're taking their money with them when they go. And surprisingly, I have read this in a number of stories, surprisingly, the fear that people will leave California and take their liberal, crazy leftist politics with them when they go and go to a red state and vote blue is not coming to pass. These folks are leaving these crazy states, moving to red states where they're free and voting for freedom. Boy, I hope that continues. I really, really do. Well, there's a lot more fighting going on. There's fighting in Congress, there's fighting in the media, there's fighting in social media, but unfortunately I'm out of time for the public portion of it. So the rest you'll be able to hear if you're a member of the GunGuyTV crew only on Patreon. If you haven't already signed up, follow the link in the description or go to GunGuyTVcrew.com to do so today. In the meantime, if you're listening on your favorite podcast player to the public part of the podcast, have a wonderful week. Thank you for all of your support. And wherever you go, whatever you do, stay safe.
You've been listening to the GunGuyTV Podcast.